So our first React board challenge. How was it? Yeah, I know, I just want you to say it again. It was a bit overwhelming to begin with, right? We're used to using dev tools to perhaps debug some of the JavaScript code, and how do we do that with React? Well, the way I suggest is that you actually just build a little sample project, a very minimal project. You can still use your Create React app if you want. So that's effectively what I've set up here. Let me just get rid of the terminal. Well, I won't get rid of it completely because it gives us some good feedback. But yeah, running Create React app, you get all of this boilerplate stuff, and then I just added a couple of components. I've added a home one, a beginner one, and an intermediate one. Of course, at the moment they're not working because it's just how the code's written on the board, but hopefully we can fix that together and we'll end up with something that does work. And for just an end example of what it should look like, then for the intermediate, essentially we want a first name and a last name displayed, and then to have a toggle button, and that will toggle the last name. And then for beginner, we just want to display a first name and a last name in two separate divs. So divs by default are blocked, so that's why they've appeared on different lines rather than on the same line. Yeah, for some reason I put intermediate on the home page. I don't really know why, but it works, okay? So we'll start with beginner anyway, so we want to get our code to eventually display something like this. Sorry? This is the beginner one, yeah, with first name and last name displayed as two block elements. So there's no button on the beginner one, yeah? We just got to get these things to display. So let's go back to our code, and I'm just checking the right one. Yep, attempt, that's the right one. So this is what we had on the board. And we can see initially we got some red lines, so well, we're getting some errors basically, yeah? So we could use our terminal to determine the problems, but because I've done it all in, oh no, it is giving me the problems in the beginner. That's good, that's what I wanted. I thought it was going to default to the problems in the intermediate. So what is the initial problem then? Well, if we've created it, what does it say? Over to you guys. What does it say? What's our error?
We are not wrapping. There's one return always supposed to be.
Yeah, so the parsing error we're getting, yeah, if we look in our terminal, it's one of our problems, so it's given us a lot of hints already. Adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. Oh, it actually says now, look at this, a very modern way to do it. Do you want a JSX fragment? So it actually suggests now to use a React fragment. It's not the only way to do it, so I think the default way that people suggested initially was, can't we just wrap it in another div? Will that work? Whoops. It will work if Graham can type properly. So we could just do something like that, right? Or could I not? What have I done wrong? Why is it still complaining? Yeah, so obviously this is just the code that we got on the board, but I want to use it in a React application. So we've still got an error, and it says React must be in scope when using JSX. So how do I get React in scope? Yeah, so we need to make sure that we import React from, does it need a path or is it just lowercase? Yeah, like that. Okay, so we can see the whole file size of React there as well is pretty small, 8.5K, it's not bad. That's fixed that issue. What's the extension that I've got to show that? Good question. I can have a quick look if you're very curious.
Why you use the extension?
Why do I use it? So that we don't get massive imports when we don't need them. So you can just check and maybe only import part of it. Import cost, it's called. There you go, import cost. That's an extension as VS Code for VS Code. Right, back to this. So what's wrong now? User is declared, but its value is never read. Okay, well that's fine, right? Yeah. So we actually want to use it in our application somewhere else, so we can export it. Just export user. Export default user. Yeah, might as well use the default. Semicolon, thank you. Any semicolons anywhere else?
And
Import
after the div,
after the div there.
the brackets.
After the bracket.
No.
That one. Yeah. It was interesting with the lag there. I wasn't sure what one Davide was referring to because he's about 3 seconds behind me. So I'd already changed it. And he's no. yeah. It's because of the lag on YouTube. All right. So that's looking pretty good now. Just to mention this enclosing div then. So when we did have that error, it was suggesting that we perhaps use a fragment. So I know Ricardo showed you a way earlier, which has been available for longer than React Fragments has been available, is that we can just wrap it in an array, right? That was another solution. Oh. That one? No, that one. There we go. Any other changes, or do we just wrap it like that? Semicolon? Maybe. Anything else, or is that going to work? I think it's highlighted red. You maybe can't see it there because of the sunlight, but why is that complaining?
And we missed one div. You have to remove this div if you put
I have to remove the div. No, we want two divs. Let's have two divs.
No, the div, the last one.
Oh, the last div. Yep. Very good point. Still red though.
It's in
We need a.
the
What's one of those? A comma,
because it's
right?
an array, after the div we put the comma.
Yeah. So we want an array of separate elements. So let's just make sure we add
In
the
this
comma.
case, we're gonna have also the div into the HTML, or with the array it's like React fragment, so we're not going to have the div. Because you say yesterday the React fragment, remove or don't show any kind new div. But
Yeah.
with the array,
I believe this should just render two divs.
two divs.
There won't be any parent div there, but we can double check that when we we can inspect the code after we've got it fully working, yeah? The other alternative was the React fragment, yeah? And we have to actually wrap that in a tag. And of course this time we don't need the comma because it's just a parent element, invisible element if you like, that doesn't get rendered to the final DOM. And that would also work. In the future, we don't even have to write React fragment. We will just be able to do
Normal.
that. Empty tag. Completely empty tag. Not supported yet, or not supported many places yet. So for now, still write React fragment if you want to use them.
Is it a test mode?
Test mode, yeah. if you want to test it out to see whether it works, then you can do that, absolutely. But yeah, as well, Bootcamp made an interesting point. When you're learning, actually write React fragment, even if this is supported, because then you understand what it's actually doing. You're creating a fragment that's not getting transferred over to the DOM. So I think that helps. Cool. So those were our 3 ways. Then I guess what I wanted to do was actually render that to the page somewhere. So I've already created some props for us here. And then I was linking to that component. Yeah, it's not finished. Did I copy over the routes as well? Let me just check. So in app.js, this is what's happening. So we're rendering our home component on the home route. In fact, that's probably not actually how it is at the moment, right? We had user. Yeah, I was going to do something else, but we're not using those at all now. So rendering home, which renders intermediate, yeah. So, and then we want to link to beginner, which will render that. Okay, fine. Yeah, let's switch back to the other one then, as that's definitely done. So, yeah, I don't know. There's not much more to be said about that, I don't think, actually. Any questions on the beginner one?
Yes, I don't like the font.
You don't like the font? Well, you can add some CSS, and this is just a very low-tech demo. That's your Easter project. Make all my demos look nice, yeah? And give me a nice CSS file that I can use in all my demos. It's better than yours anyway, Davide. Yours is tiny in the corner. You can't even see it. Yeah, I don't have that on my laptop, unfortunately. I haven't got a flash Apple Mac like some people. Sorry, Luigi, yeah. Say again? The wrapper?
The wrapper.
Yes. What about the wrapper?
What is most common? Is it to use a React fragment or? I mean, I noticed obviously as you wrap it in as an array, you always have to add a comma, which is, I don't know, maybe like an additional step.
Yeah.
On the other side, I would imagine that probably the div gets rendered to the DOM instead the React fragment doesn't. I don't know if that was the difference between the two.
Yeah, by far the most common still is using the div, but that's just because it's always been supported. And then since React version 16.2, I think it is, you've been able to use the array method to wrap stuff. And then since 16.6, you've been able to use array fragments. So I guess the preferred version now, and based on the fact that our terminal here, our problems that were listed down the bottom were actually saying, do you want to use a fragment? Then I think that is probably the best practice or the preferred method now. And you're quite right. The difference is that using a React fragment, you're not rendering anything in the DOM apart from those actual child divs that you want to render.
Just kind of like maybe performance-wise, better.
Yeah. You're not polluting the DOM as much, so there will be a slight performance benefit there as well. Cool. I'll leave it like that for now. It doesn't matter, right? Okay, on to the intermediate one. Unless there's any more questions on that. Yeah,
Can I get
Willis?
intermediate code?
Intermediate code.
Yeah, just, I don't know, Slack.
You want me to Slack you this code over
Yeah.
as it was on the board challenge? Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yep.
on the board it's not really readable.
Okay. Well,
I want to see what does I need.
yeah, I'm just gonna pause the streaming for a sec. Okay, we should be back. Now let's have a look at the intermediate code in here. Intermediate. Right. Whew. There's quite a lot going on, right? And I think many people were overwhelmed when they first looked at this, just written on the board. We didn't have any syntax highlighting. We didn't have any errors that were telling us where to start. So there was quite a lot going on, quite a lot to process. Should we just start top down? I think the first thing that most people noticed was we're using state.
Okay.
You know?
I just would like to start at the beginning. First name, last name, you should include curly braces.
Okay. So Pelin would like to start with the beginning, saying we should include curly braces where? Here, on line 1. Or
For me, yeah.
should be, again. No?
Offline.
I'm streaming somewhere. I did pause it. Just try refreshing it for me. You've tried? Okay. Are we back? Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. Right, yeah. So where would you like to start?
I changed my mind.
You
because-
changed your mind.
I don't know. After constructor, there's a super.
Okay, all right.
Let's start with this one.
So let's start with line 1. So I think a lot of people said that it contains state. So in other words, it's not a function the way it's being written with the syntax. I know now that we can use React hooks to use state in functional components. We haven't obviously talked about that yet in this course. So we're used to using the class-based method of using state. Now, that's still the most popular way, and it will be for a long time, and you'll have lots of legacy React code, if there is such a thing as legacy React code, that will use class-based components for a long time to come. So you're definitely good. It's a good practice to still learn the class-based method. So rather than a function, we want class. What else do we need to change?
Use extend
Extends, what, just after it, like this?
after user.
React.component. Okay, so let me actually import React so that it makes sense as well. But of course I know you didn't have this on the board challenge, but it's good to think about how it will fit into an application as well. So we want to import React from React, yeah. Cool.
First name, last name.
Remove first name and last name. Leave the brackets.
No, you remove it
Remove it.
after component.
After component.
It will.
This one. No?
What is this?
No, okay, don't get confused.
What's up, Davide? Is it okay now, or is it still wrong?
I think we need normal brackets. No, this.
Okay. Let's move on for now, and then if we need to fix it at the end, we'll come back. Pelin also mentioned we need a super, but we don't need it there, do we? We need it after, inside the constructor, right? So we've got a class, we need a constructor. Super.
I have a question actually.
Yeah.
I do understand, okay, super refers to wherever it is, but isn't super by default coming? If you omit it, isn't it default value?
I didn't think it was a default value.
I mean, super tells like, call my... whatever
Call the
you-
parent, yeah.
Yeah, call the parent constructor, so
Yeah.
whatever it has to, it will do magic. But as it says, like it extends component.
I don't know. I'd have to play around with that. Yeah, but
'Cause-
I think for
because
now
I'm
it's good
thinking, like,
practice
if
just
it's
to use
the-
it.
If it's default code,
Yeah.
like best practice is like, I mean, if it's default and you don't have to change anything, just omit. Like,
Hmm. But while we're learning, let's include it so we're aware that if we need to access the parent component, the parent component's constructor or whatever, then we can call super. Is super part of React or part of JavaScript? Is it a method that's defined in React, or is it part of the core JavaScript language?
Thank you.
People are saying React. What did you say, Danny and Nico? React?
I never said
Don't know. But it's
no, it's coming from JavaScript.
yeah, it's coming from JavaScript. It's part.
constructor is like objects.
Yeah. So class, we can define classes now in JavaScript. Constructor, part of core language of JavaScript. Super, part of the core language of JavaScript. Obviously React.component, that's coming from.
super.
No,
Yeah.
super you will fill one up.
Yeah,
Ah,
one level up. Yeah. Anyway, as long as you know how to write the component and you know that you need super, that's all we need to know for now. How about render? Is that part of core JavaScript,
No.
or is that part of React?
It's
A React method.
extending.
Yeah, it's extending.
It asks for you to implement
Yeah.
method.
So it's a method that comes from the React ecosystem, really. Yeah.
It's mandatory to implement this part.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not optional because ours are
It's-
optionals. Like lifecycle is optional.
Yeah, it's not optional. No, if you want to render something, we need to
If you
need to
take
include render.
component for class to be working fine, you have to implement.
Okay, cool. But just sometimes I think it helps knowing what's coming from the core language and what's coming from a library, because you could use this design pattern in many, many different applications. It doesn't have to be a React application. Yeah, you can create a class, call the constructor, call super.
Class structure.
Yeah, it's just a design structure for working with things in JavaScript. Yeah, but we can extend the functionality by rendering JSX elements by using React render. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, where do we get to? We've created a constructor, we've created super, we're trying to put something in the state. We've got is last name visible equals false. I've got a red line under that. What's the issue there? 2 dots, so we're passing an object to this dot state, so we need to make sure that it has a key value pair and it follows the object syntax. Nice. I think you had more code than that, right? This dot set state. I think you had a lot more code than that written on the board. I don't know why I've just got that. I think you had all of this stuff. Okay. So I think that line was alright, wasn't it? There was nothing wrong in there. What's that line doing?
What it's doing is checking the states.
Checking the state?
Yeah. No, first thing which, once the line is called, once the function is called,
Yeah, so once our method is called, so once toggle last name is called, it's running this line of code.
it tries to set the states.
So it sets a certain state property.
On the call it calls current status. And that exclamation mark, this state is last name is still calls before it can apply.
Yeah, so
We do the state.
whatever this is, we use the not operator to effectively toggle false and true depending on what the value was before. And that will set the state property is last name visible to that value. Then this dot set state will force a re-render so that those changes actually get updated on the page. Cool.
Great. We're doing that in order to capture the previous state every time, right? As opposed to doing set state is last name visible true, because otherwise you get stuck in
Yeah,
the true and
we want to toggle the last name on and off. We don't want to just display it and then always have it fixed displayed. We want to have that toggle function. So that's why we're using the not operator to actually toggle it, as opposed to just doing is last name visible true, because that would obviously change it to true, but then we've got no way at the moment without writing another function to flip it back to false. Yeah, nice. Render. Onto the render then. What's wrong with the render?
We do
Need
return.
a return.
You have to close
Yeah,
the
we
render.
Have to close the render. I think the render's closed already, right?
The render brackets, and then you open curly braces. It will be written inside.
No, because in the render you
Render.
Like this. Like this. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
wait, Davide.
I don't know what you're doing. I hope it's too late.
Cool. And then I'll chuck this inside, yeah?
And the return.
Oh, look at that. That's a lot of red. There we go. Nice.
And a semicolon.
And a semicolon, of course. Don't forget those. Thanks, Nico. We've still got some red. First name. First name is not defined.
This first name, this.
This dot first name. Oh my god, this dot. No dot. First name. Okay. Same over here. Why are we using this?
What they did.
No, why are we using the word this? Why do we have to use that in a class? Well, I just told you, right, we have to use it in a class, pretty much.
We're a class object.
Yeah, because we're referencing the class object. So in other words, it's user dot first name, user dot last name. Cool. Button on click. So maybe this needs a this as well. Is that enough? Will that work now? Nah, not really. So we can either bind our events, or I think Ricardo showed you this method as well. What do we do, Lucia? Arrow function, yeah? Like this?
Open brackets.
That's it.
That's it? And invoke it, yeah? Okay, nice.
Can I ask something?
Yes.
Regarding that line on click, I think it would be useful, for me at least, but probably for some other people, if you could make it a bit more explicit what actually, how the event, say, handler works.
Mm-hmm.
In this case on click, in another function we saw on change,
On change,
which
on
is
focus,
a bit more
whatever.
complicated. I'm reading with value, arrow, this change value, e.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think, a classic JavaScript thing. But to be honest, I couldn't really decode it very well, other than receive an event and change it to another one. But I think a little explanation, maybe not now, but
Sure.
about like
Event handlers and event.
handlers and
yeah.
listeners
Yeah.
in standard JavaScript
Yep.
would be very useful. And that is obviously related to the DOM. I'm only saying because I took part in a workshop where this was explained,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very useful.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in React, it's like okay, Ricardo said, for example, on change or on click, you want to have a capital C, which is the difference from the standard syntax in JavaScript. Okay?
Yep.
So on capital C change.
Yep.
As opposed to on change on click, but
Yeah. Most of our events, well, all of our events are written in camel case. Yeah.
so my
In
point
React
is
and JavaScript.
basically the word is quite intuitive. Not if you on click, on change, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
One, like someone I know always says, what do you think is going to happen? You guess it.
Yeah.
You guess it, but it's different to know what's going on with an event handler. So I think a little work lesson on that would be very useful.
Cool.
Just to know.
Yep. So event listeners and event handlers, how they sort of work together, how they listen, and how they update the DOM or change. Okay. Yep. Cool.
Thank you.
Yep. So actually passing in some events and stuff like that, and using them in our methods. Yeah. Okay. We can
Thank you.
we can try and look at that soon-ish.
It is good to know the class of JavaScript, DOM, event, and something. Let's say that one day we have to change, instead of React, we have to use Vue, another framework.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're learning the React with C. I don't know, for example, in Vue they use the same thing, or in Angular they use the same.
Yeah.
So
Very
if you know the
similar.
DOM,
It will be across other libraries and frameworks, but not necessarily exactly the
If
same.
you know a little bit about the DOM, then
Yeah.
you can adapt this.
So give a high level overview as well of what they do, right? And then how to use them in React. Cool, because I speak to some students and they want to just learn it in one way, obviously, rather than learning it in two different ways, and then it gets mixed up. And then obviously other people want to learn both the DOM, the traditional way, versus the React way as well. Yeah, so
Also to understand how React compare with thinking like from JavaScript.
mhm.
We learn this and also a feedback about the DOM. There will be maybe also some challenge about it on.
Yeah. You said before the
Something
boot camp.
like
I
that.
remember your recommendation. Yep. Cool. Okay, so it's obviously a common theme that a lot of people want. So that's definitely on the action list, right? For the end of the week, we're doing the retro as part of this workshop. It looks like. So. Yeah. No, thanks for bringing it up, Nico. Really, cheers. All right. So, are we nearly there with this? Are we nearly there?
Yeah, it's totally great. There will be the chance or possibility to see also a sort of little editor when we are doing the challenge. So we can see, for example, now the bottom, like in React, that you see when you code something, when you fix something, you can see, for example, the bottom now is doing this.
I can't visualize what you mean. So can we hold off on that just for now, and then we'll come back to that. Yeah, let's finish off this first. So we need to export it still, right? So we can use it in our application. Let's actually get it working. Export default, right? And we've still called it user, or not, confusingly. Yep. Semicolon. Right, so will this work as it is? What are we still missing? Is this dot first name defined? Did someone say no? Or no, I heard that. I need that in a okie doke. So shall we try running this and see what happens? We've got no problems. Oh, it's already running on 3001. Where are all our props? We're not getting our props for some reason. Yeah. So we're passing first name and last name into our intermediate one, and that's this file. Hold on, I'm in the correct one now. We were passing our props, first name and last name, into our intermediate file. And then what are we doing with them? Where are they?
Props. They're not giving to constructor.
They're not getting to the constructor, no? Or they are, perhaps, as a prop. So if we did this dot props dot first name, then we could access it. Okay, so now I'm getting them. But Ricardo used array destructuring, right? So we originally had it written something like that. So how do we use it like that in our component? Davide, you built this, didn't you? How did you do it?
I'm trying to follow.
Oh, okay.
What was the question?
So at the moment, I'm just referencing it as this dot props dot first name. Yeah, and by default, our props object gets passed to our constructor, so we don't have to explicitly put it up there, but it's nice to put it up there, right? Yeah, but previously in the board challenge question, it was passed. It was passed like that.
The deconstructing of the.
Yeah, the destructuring as first name and last name.
So this was the.
No, the thing is, it had a function and it put the two
Parameter there.
top, correct?
Yeah. It was a function passing it. So, where I've done it, or somewhere different?
No, you can do in a render before return statement.
Yeah, I think typically.
Because he created variable to make it. No, I don't know, in
Yeah.
a different challenge. To be structured, yeah.
Typically, you'll see it down here on top of the render
Yeah.
statement. That's the way I've seen it done. We'll have to ask Ricardo if there's a way to do it in the constructor. I'm not sure, but for now, let's just get it to work in the render. Yeah. So we're trying to destructure first name and last name, and where are first name and last name currently coming from? Let's assign them to a variable. Yeah. So let's assign const.
They're coming from props.
They are coming from props. Agreed. Just props. Props is not defined.
Props the first name.
Props is not defined though, so we.
Oh.
This dot props. This dot props. Yes. Yeah. And that means. So now we're getting a couple of warnings. First name is assigned a value but never used. So therefore, whenever we now use first name and last name, we don't have to do this dot props. We can just call first name, last name. Yeah. So that's one way of using object destructuring in class components. We will have to ask if there's a way to include them up here. But for now, this is the method that the design pattern that I'm aware of. Let's check whether that's worked. This is our attempt at the board challenge, so it looks like it's worked, and it's still working. Awesome. Questions on that before we address this little annoying issue here of not having a space between the names?
Can you show it again, please?
Show the code again. Yeah. Let's review it.
Thank you. So you put them in the constructor.
Oh no. So
No,
that's.
sorry. You put them under the render.
Let's ignore that now.
Under
That's.
the render line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Const, first name, last name equals.
So essentially, what that's doing is saying const. Oh, let me copy it. So that's saying const first name equals this dot props dot first name. Yeah, that's what it's doing essentially. I mean, it's not liking it because that's already defined right up there. Yeah, but if I didn't have it defined up there, then that's essentially what it's doing. Yeah, const first name equals this dot props dot first name, and also the same for last name. So it's just syntax sugar again. It's just shorthand. It's not doing anything new that we can't do by writing out a lot of text. Yeah, that's what that line above has done. It's assigned a variable of first name to this dot props dot first name, and a variable of last name to this dot props dot last name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the easiest way to do it, well, an easier way to do it is like that. It just stops us writing this dot props, this dot props, this dot blah blah blah. Yeah. Which can get tedious if you've got a huge file. Cool. Any questions on the intermediate one? No? So let's get rid of that annoying squashed up name, yeah, and stick an actual space in there because it was really bothering Davide. So your one solution, Davide, was to use span, yeah. So let me get rid of the log. So in here you would have a span, yeah. And you just put on what, a space like that within a span, or yeah.
I sent also the class to start with because I was not sure.
You gave it a class.
Yeah.
So will that work
I
like
don't know
that?
if there are other span.
So that will work like that.
For what? For a space?
Yeah,
No,
Yeah.
this.
it's working. Yeah, you see,
Yeah.
we've got a space.
I do.
So all I've literally done is put in a span with an empty space in there.
No, I wrapped the first name in
You wrapped first name in the
with
span.
Sunny plus the span. and
Right.
Margin left 5 degrees. Just
Why are you doing all the CSS styling and stuff as well? You just wanted to. Okay. So, but it's not necessary to actually get that space in there, right? That's okay, I guess, but it seems a bit pointless to use a span just for one space, right? So Davide also said I was trying to do something with strings. So in other words, you were trying to do something like, I guess, like that, or not, Davide, with just a plus and a space.
no.
It wasn't there? No.
That's the space.
Oh, does that actually still work? Okay. So maybe you didn't try that in because I wasn't entirely sure whether that would work. But yeah, look. Okay, so that works as well.
I did a space with a very old and no breaking space of it.
Yeah. So you did.
The simple.
So that would have to be outside, right? And you'd have to do. Is it MBSP?
MBSP colon, semicolon.
That one. Yeah. And this also works.
I think this is
Yeah.
the best one.
Well, that's a space. A simple
Just a space.
Yeah. It's forcing it to put a space character in there, right? So that's what's the format of that? What do they call it?
HTML.
They just call it an HTML. Yeah.
It's when it's like an
But
escape.
it's an escape
card.
character, isn't it? It's escape
Yeah,
character.
escape
Yeah, that's what they
card.
call them, escape characters. Yeah. So that would work as well.
But now there is
Quite
another-
forceful that one,
there's
I
another
feel.
issue.
Is there? What's the other issue?
We have to put also space between the bottom and the surname and the last name.
Oh, okay. What? So you think we need to put them there? Oh, no, not that. We need to put one of those as well.
Just to play with the style.
Yeah, I mean, we might actually separate that and put a proper div or a paragraph or enclose that run, right, rather than just a space. So now, yeah, okay, it's spaced out a bit nicer. Cool, it's a big improvement actually. Or we can just do the whole thing in JavaScript and not mix the formats by, let's just use backticks, right? Let's use template literals. So we need a space afterwards, right? So I can just put a space there, and this is a variable, so let's make it a variable. Yeah, just to prove that there is a difference and we're not just showing the same screen and again. That's squashed up, and then with the space, that works. Okay, so I think we've seen a few different ways there of how to insert spaces into our JSX, which is probably going to be pretty useful. All right, that's it from me, unless anyone's got any other points they want to raise. No? Helpful? Very cool, thank you. I'm glad that it helped some, and if we get any more React board challenges, which I think we definitely should have at least one more, then it's a good idea maybe to build it like this and play around with it to understand
I
it.
was something like this before.
Hmm.
So in the meanwhile that we are doing the challenge, if we have a sort of editor so we can see the button shows this.
So you want to see a visual representation of the component that you're building in the React platform.
So,
Yeah, pose that one to Ricardo and see what he says about that. I don't think he'll do it over Easter, let's put it that way. But in the future, okay, maybe. We'll see. Cool. All right, guys. Any questions, Luigi and Viv? Was that okay?
Thank you, great.
Yeah?
It was very, very helpful to go through it.
Awesome. I'm glad. I'm very glad. Vivian, you still there? Don't know. Okay. All right, I'll sign off then. Thanks a lot, guys.
thank you.